All right, what is up? What is up, everybody? It's your man, Sean Zittel, holding it down still from Canarsie here in Brooklyn, New York City, my hometown and the home of Haney versus Garcia Saturday night. And yeah, I started the lives this week. Oh, hold on, who's calling me? Wait one moment here. Anyway, I started the lives this week in the airport, right? We started Thursday by missing the workout at Gleason's gym, and I said as I was waiting in the Chicago airport, I feel kind of guilty all of a sudden. Not all of a sudden, but I feel guilty covering this fight. When the fight was first announced, I and the change in Ryan's voice was a big indicator that something wasn't right with Ryan Garcia. And I was one of the people who, back in February, early March, felt like there was a strong chance we wouldn't even get to April 20th in Brooklyn. And I asked Oscar De La Hoya and Bernard Hopkins if this fight should really be going through. What was the card they last? It may have been Virgil Ortiz, Frederick Lawson, but I don't think so. It was a card. It was a card last month in March back home in Las Vegas, but. So when I got to the airport, I said, I feel a little bad, like I didn't fully do my job as a media guy, because now I'm about to go through and try to make money and content off of a young man who I think is being exploited, and no one's exploiting him more than himself. And so I posed the question to start this live. Have I just been masterfully trolled by Ryan? Have I taken his words at face value too much, make too much of it? And so I considered last night, after some good discussions here in Brooklyn with my boy Dane and some friends of ours here staying at the house, that it's Ryan Garcia culture jamming. Is culture jamming something I learned in college? Is when you do a bunch of crazy kind of off the wall stuff, but you're really subverting the media and pushing across a message. His message being, child pedophilia and kind of showing what the world reacts to, what he sees, as truth and all of that. And then I watched a great interview that got reposted today on the Porterway podcast, my guys at the Porterway. And I watched it, and Ryan said heading into the Fortuna fight that you have to know what gets views and what doesn't, and adjust to it and exploit it. He even used the word exploit, which told me he doesn't just lean into his ability to have the finger on the pulse in this TikTok social media generation. He's willing to go to some serious lengths in getting attention brought to himself. He used the word exploit, and that's what this feels exploitative from even people like me coming out to get content, from the promoters, from the networks, and from more than anybody else, Ryan Garcia himself has exploited his behavior to market this fight and market himself. And I felt like the weigh-in yesterday, this morning, the weigh-in this morning where Ryan came in 143.2 was the final straw to let you know he's not in control of this circus anymore. It's gone off the rails. I think it was never on the rails from the moment this fight was signed. And him missing weight after betting $500,000 on it, and we'll take a look at that one more time just to refresh everyone's memories. But you saw his father and Derek James motion to him, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. They must have known ahead of time he was going to miss weight. And everyone's speculating, myself included, since back in February, is substances involved. Substance abuse involved. And I know myself as someone who used to have substance abuse problems in the early 2010s when I was fresh out of high school. Substance abuse makes you very impulsive. And Ryan, when he agreed to that bet, that was very impulsive of him. And again, it's tough to cast aspersions on another man when he passed all the drug tests of the New York State Athletic Commission. But I recognize that behavior. I recognize it personally from when I used to do it. Let's take a look at that bet real quick. And let me shout out Quesadilla Monty. Rocket T said he's a troll, but you did your job. J7, Derek definitely ain't working with him after this. Look, Derek's not really working with anybody if you take his quotes to heart. He said in a Boxing Scene article, these are his last fighters and he's out of the game. And if you're Derek James, you get betrayed, rumor has it, by Errol Spence. He tries to pay you only 5% of his guarantee and not 5% of all the pay-per-view revenue he got as a percentage split. You get Anthony Joshua, who comes in from England, hat in hand, and then he goes back to England with Ben Davison. He leaves you. Jermell Charlo leans heavily into Joan Guzman to knock out Castano in the rematch. It feels like they weren't as close for the second Castano fight and the Canelo fight as they were in building Jermell up at 154, making him a knockout artist instead of the boxer he was before he got to Derek. And now you got Ryan Garcia and his, his craziness. And there's still, just good old Frank Martin, who's preparing as a significant underdog to Tank. So, yeah, I feel for Derek James a little bit too, but he is getting a check out of this at the end of the day. They were and building Jermell it was kind of funny making him a knockout. Him getting mad about the bet for $500,000 a pound. It makes sense that he would get mad because he already got some of the gross, some of the pay knocked off of the Errol Spence thing, and he's going, here we go again. This 1.5 million, that's not out of my end, is it? That's not has nothing to do with me. But here we go. At the end of the day, let's take a look at that. It was kind of funny making him a knockout. Him getting mad about the bet for $500,000 a pound. It makes sense. Oh my God, was I talking over myself this whole time? I apologize if I was. I hope I wasn't talking over myself this whole time. So, someone said, Sean, you were very beautiful. I appreciate that. I don't know how many people would agree with that. Antonio McMillan. Good to see Antonio McMillan. Antonio, make sure we get to that discussion about Devin and Boots and Tank later in the stream, brother. Good to see you. So, let me go ahead and play this now. He would get mad because he already got some... What am I doing? This is crazy. I'm just trying to play this and hold on 1 second, chat. Oh, because that's the wrong video. Forgive me, chat. All right, so here's the bet.
Flip it out with you. Do you believe that's gonna happen?
No, he won't.
Why do you think that?
What do you think I'll do?
I just don't think you're gonna go in the middle of the ring. I mean, that would be stupid.
Why?
All right, come to the center.
I'll meet you in the center.
What the fuck? Come to the center. All right, we'll go to the center of the ring. We'll see what you do, bro. Nobody's worried about that. Go run.
Here comes the bet right here.
Go to the center. Do whatever the fuck you want. I'm gonna hunt you down. I'm gonna fucking knock you out. $500,000. $500,000.
Impulsive.
Yeah, you better make weight. You gotta take that vest off. What about your weight? So whoever come up with weight.
That's how you behave when you're not in your best mental state, man. When you're not thinking right. And again, I hope it's not that. I hate to cast aspersions on another man, but I know I did dumb shit like that when I used to do drugs.
100%.
Okay, that's a bet. That's a bet. Y'all heard the bet.
Contrast.
Look at Derek James. Derek James is like, dude, I'm very sensitive about this percentage and cut stuff right now after what I've been through. Devin right here pounced on Ryan. Devin pounced on Ryan. He was like a shark that smelled blood in the water and said $500,000 a pound. I think that's my five, guys. Hold on.
No, 500,000 per pound.
Henry was trying to speak some sense into it. Let me get my five, guys.
Hey, Ryan.
Whatever you say, Dad.
Hey, Ryan, let's do 500,000 per pound.
Okay.
Let's do a check on it.
Your mama want to put something in on it too? Your mama want to put some money on it too? Let's get it. Let's get
Where's
it.
your mama,
Five,
baby?
guys. 3
Where's
days
your
in a
mama?
row, damn it.
Oh, I'm gonna go flirt with your mama. Ooh, she got me fine as fuck. Yeah, I want some of your mama. I want your mama now. Hey, your mama probably in my DMs. Fuck you, motherfucker. Don't talk about my mom before I fuck you up.
So right there, you saw him go to 3 different speeds. And I talked about yesterday on the live, not just what he's saying, but his mannerisms and his body language are concerning for me. And the eyes are the window to the soul. And his eyes, I see a troubled man behind the eyes. And you saw right there, he went from, let me joke around. His scatterbrain is crazy right now heading into this fight. And he goes from, let me be funny and joke about, banging the other guy's mom in his DMs, and then let me switch it to, no, I don't play like that. I'll fuck you up. Don't talk about my mom. And then he just tries to go back to the sweet Victorville kid smile, and it's all over the place. Meanwhile, Devin Haney, like a shark smelling blood in the water, pounces on him, pounces on his impulsiveness with the $500,000 per pound. And I think he's carrying that same kind of thing into the ring.
Yeah, that fear coming in your mouth like a bitch, dog. I'll put my dick in your mouth, bitch.
And that went viral. That went viral. Someone edited it with "Thank you, Jesus, thank you, Jesus," and then I'll put my dick in your mouth.
No Diddy.
It's cocaine.
No Diddy.
And all of that sells the fight and brings attention to the fight that it normally wouldn't. So I went there. I said, am I being, you know, trolled? Is he culture jamming? Is he pushing across a point and subverting all of us? And then when I heard the interview with Sean Porter, when he talked about doing those kinds of things instinctually, you know, intelligently, I said, okay, maybe I am getting played. And even though I got Devin Haney winning this fight, and I continue to say it, Devin Haney's right hand ends the fight unless something crazy breaks out. Some type of Bo Galata, Tyson Holyfield 2, you know, Zab Judah, Floyd Mayweather in the ring brawl breaks out. I think this is the fight that ends with Devin Haney's right hand. But Ryan's natural talent, the fact that he's born with the stuff you can't teach. He punches really hard and very fast, and he's tall. All things you can't teach, God-given gifts. You know, it does give me a little pause, a little pause before I just write him off and pick Devin. And then the fact that this kid knows how to manipulate the media in today, 2024. He's a contemporary media mastermind in some ways. And so, you know, like Jake Paul, like Logan Paul, those are friends of his from Southern California. They knew each other years ago. And I think they borrowed from each other on getting over. Like in wrestling, when you get famous, people start messing. It's called getting over. He's gotten over by being a contemporary media mastermind. So I'm saying to myself, okay, maybe I've been played. Maybe I've been trolled. And this kid's talent is as crazy as he is heading into the fight. You just can't count him out. So that goes through my mind. But yeah, someone says in the chat, Erubio Lopez says the eyes don't lie. And when I talked about his mannerisms and everything, this is more of what I mean too. It's just odd.
Ryan Garcia.
So he comes here, and yeah, he's got the beer and everything, but it's not just the beer.
And his opponent. Ryan wants to win right now. 143.2.
That better?
Official weight for Ryan Garcia.
I apologize, chat, for why my video seems so whited out on this live. It's odd. Let me see if it's like that on others. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. That's weird. It's whitening out everybody's face. Let's see if we can. There we go. That's a little more normal, but not really. So you see everyone. Chugs the beer. It's just odd mannerisms, man. Like that doesn't look healthy to me. Look at Oscar. We all know Oscar's done and been through some shit, and Oscar's face is like, man, I don't know. And then Ryan just couldn't stay still. He's all over the place. And Devin is coiling and reserving all that kind of energy right there for the fight. Nice uppercuts and left hook by Ryan. Good work. You know, that looked good on the shadow boxing, but he's just all over the place, man. Then Devin weighs in. Man, I don't know why it's so bright like that on my screen. So then the brawl almost breaks out. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was Bernard or if it was the bodyguard that Ryan, you know, known as Gaines. That's with Ryan, but maybe it was Bill and Bernard. Something happened. Someone said something, and Bill Haney just went nuts. And then afterwards, Derek James and Bernard just kept trying to talk sense into Ryan, but he's on his own everything right now. So there you see Bill Haney go off. Looks like he's trying to get at Bernard Hopkins.
The fight is happening in the ring tomorrow evening here at
Oscar getting in the middle of it. And then Ryan starts,
Right now, as we get our final
you know,
stereo
praying
of
right
the
there, and it's just odd, man.
champions will meet in the ring tomorrow evening.
Then the weigh-in comes,
The two
and
fighters
Ryan's
will
over here
fight.
doing his best Conor McGregor. Again, is this all masterful trolling? He's doing the Conor McGregor thing, but look, Conor McGregor, how much was Conor McGregor trolling these last 5 years? He really has had a cocaine problem and has been abusing, it would seem, steroids. And even though he has made a lot of money and he's very famous, he isn't winning fights in this frame of mind anymore. He's won, I don't even know MMA, but I know he's won one fight against Cerrone, the cowboy. Other than that, he has lost all his fights by stoppage since he began fully acting like this. I know he acted like this when he beat Nate Diaz and became two-time champion as well, but this feels more like the Conor McGregor antics after he was a two-time champion. And I don't even know MMA like this. But.
They are 3 wins each. Never as a professional.
So there you go. Just to add again to my point. So to bring it full circle, I came to Brooklyn. First went live at the airport wondering, is this fight really should be going on? And then said more of the same yesterday after the final presser. And I have no reason to feel any differently after the weigh-in. It's only validated those feelings. And him missing weight by 3 pounds, having to pay Devin Haney. I think I heard Dan Raphael on Twitter, I believe, said they agreed to less than $500K. But technically, if it really was that bet of $500,000 a pound, he was on the hook for 1.6, not even 1.5, because 0.2 pounds, a fifth of a pound, a fifth of $500,000 would be $100,000. So good mental math there. He would owe $1.6 million. So, and we'll look at a few more breakdowns quickly from Clarissa Shields and Roy Jones and Jim Lampley, the former HBO greats. But I have Devin Haney winning the fight, and I think he stops Ryan Garcia with the right hand unless Ryan does something like Brennan Taylor, True School Sports, has said from Jump Street, unless he does something to get himself disqualified. And again, I've said it multiple times this week, by his own quotes and admission, he said, "I'll bite both ears, I'll break both arms," and then his last quote at the press conference Thursday was, "I'm going to snap his neck." So if you believe him even just a little bit, disqualification's in play. Like I said on Sean's to start the week, I do think for 2 or 3 rounds he's going to be very dangerous. If Ryan ices Devin Haney with a left hook, I'll eat my words and give the young man credit. Hell, if he goes 12 rounds and makes it 116, 112, I'm going to almost treat it like he won because of how much I've counted him out in the lead up to this fight, and now that we're finally here. So, I'm prepared to have to eat crow and give Ryan his credit, but what I'm expecting to happen is maybe something bizarre to happen Saturday, and if nothing bizarre does happen and the fight just plays out, I expect Devin with the right hand to become too accurate against Ryan as the fight goes on. Ryan is one line of defense he has is the check left hook, and that keeps guys honest and it keeps them weary of really pursuing him and walking him down. And then he with Derek James, he's increasingly working on his high guard and the catch and shoot. But ultimately, he still doesn't move his upper body. Eddie Reynoso was trying to grow that into his game. He left Eddie Reynoso just as Reynoso was really starting to make him a world-class fighter. And he's as Devin finds his range after those first 2 or 3 dangerous rounds, the brick hand, the right hand, I think is going to find a home. It's going to find a home whether he leads with it, and I think it's going to find a home whether he counters with it and sits down on his counters with little half steps back like Terrence Crawford did to Errol Spence. That's something we haven't seen enough of in Devin Haney's game. He's still been a get off first and back at a range kind of artist, more so than getting off first, catching a counter, catching what's coming back, slipping what's coming back, and then finishing and punctuating last in the exchange. He's done a lot of get off first and get out of there like he did against Regis Prograis. But when Devin says it's going to be an early night, he doesn't say things before. He's not one of these guys that promises a knockout before every fight. And when he says it's an early night, it's not like Ryan Garcia. He's not selling you it. He's not being over the top with it. He's saying it cool, calm, and from the chest. I think it's going to be an early night. I don't see Ryan going 12. And, he feels strong at 140. His right hand dropped Regis and hurt him basically every time he hit him with it. I think that right hand will clean up the fight as it goes on. So we just got to see what happens. And I'm thinking what I'm going to ask Ryan Garcia in the post fight. I'd want a hot quote. I'd want to ask him to compare the power of Tank and Devin. That if I was thinking in terms of views and hot quote, that would be the number one question in my mind. You fought Devin Haney, you fought Tank Davis. Who's better? And how would you compare their punching power? I know my colleagues are going to get that question off, and I'll use the quote on my site, and we all will use that quote. That's the number one quote question after the fight. But my question to Ryan afterward is probably going to be one of concern at the post fight. I'm already got it all. Should it play out the way Vegas has Devin a 10-1 favorite? Should it play out the way everyone's thinking? I just want to ask him a question in the post fight, kind of rooted in compassion, because he could potentially be facing a very dark Sunday morning, or not, or he wins by knockout and he's the biggest draw in American boxing, and I gotta eat my words and bow down to King Ride. But I don't see that happening for him. I always say this before the big fights, there's always a real level of foreshadowing heading into real big fights. If you go back and watch the old great fights, and if you could dig up press conference footage or watch the HBO Legendary Nights, their 9-part series on all the great fights they had, there's always foreshadowing leading into these big fights, and it's up to us to find what the signs are and what it's pointing towards. All the signs are pointing towards Ryan could potentially do something crazy tomorrow night, and that he's very likely not to win the fight. So if he pulls it off, all credit to him. But let me say what's up to some people in the chat. I can see Ryan's corner thrown in the towel, says LAV. We've seen Devin Haney look like a lost child against Loma. He literally needs his dad. It's pathetic, says OQK. Ryan ain't winning. Devin's too smart for Ryan, says Carlos Martinez. Kenyo Taylor said, let's go Ryan. And Ryan fans, you know what? I got a question for the Ryan Garcia fans in the chat, okay? And I'll close this poll. Looks like 62% of you do feel like Ryan isn't right, but 38% of you think it's a masterful troll job. So I have another question for you, chat. Am I being too harsh, judgmental on Ryan? Judgmental. Am I being too harsh on Ryan, or is this on the money with the concerns? Okay? Harsh. You're right, it's troubling. Go ahead. And then lastly, we will finish a poll with just who do you think is going to win? So I asked Jim Lampley about some of this stuff too. The great Jim Lampley, a man I admire and look up to in this field. And let's hear what Jim has to say about everything Ryan Garcia heading into this fight. One moment. Let's go.
Sean Zittel, always an honor to be joined by the greatest blow-by-blow man that ever did it, Jim Lampley.
He really is the best blow-by man that ever did it.
Now about 24 hours out from the fight. Have people like me, in the media, have we failed Ryan by this fight going on? You know what I mean?
I understand why, in your heart and your sympathy.
I really don't know why my video is being this bright. It's odd. I don't know what is causing. Oh, hold on. Maybe that'll help.
Another human being, you might say that
a little bit.
We as media people failed him by participating in this process that could possibly lead to some negative effect for him. But this is what he wants. This is what he's been shooting for and banking for cumulatively with all of his behaviors over the course of the past few years.
Jacob Belvin says, this is basically the same question, just you're asking it in a different way. Okay, you know what? I'm going to rock with Jay Belvins. I listen to the criticisms of my audience. So I'll skip right to the easy one. Who wins? Who wins? Let's go. Who wins? Ryan. Devin. Boom. I listen to my audience. Continue, Jim. Let's go.
Including cultivating an image going into this event that he's in some crazy sphere of unpredictable behavior that could lead to unwarranted damage. I doubt that. It's a boxing match.
who said this? BAP, B-A-P-P said, y'all failed him by painting a narrative. He's a grown man. What narratives do you think failed him? I'm curious.
They're wearing gloves. They have a referee and rules and various installations around them to keep anything really super dangerous from happening. Probably the worst thing that happens to Ryan Garcia in this circumstance, that he's not prepared to fight at his best and he loses a fight to a better boxer. And that, I think, is the most predictable result based on everything we've seen. Almost always, the guy who's banking on landing one big shot to change the fight is going to be beaten by
the boxer
more
beats the
skillful
brawler.
And adept boxer.
Basically,
and
the
every
boxer beats
evidence
the
going
puncher.
into this fight suggests that Devin Haney has the technique advantage.
Well, you called Bo Galata fan man. You didn't call Tyson Holyfield, but of course you remember that rematch. Is that in play? I know you said you don't believe that'll happen because officials are in place, but is there a potential for one of those bizarre boxing nights to happen?
There's a potential every time people go into the ring for something bizarre to happen. This is not normal human behavior. We're creating conventions with gloves and medical commissions and ringside doctors.
Yeah, but even this isn't normal human behavior for boxing. What's going on, Ryan?
To make it acceptable, to make it legal, to be sure that people understand there's a...
This reminds me of Mike Tyson past his prime and Conor McGregor past his prime.
And I've watched people die. Sometimes the best laid plans are not going to prevent something bad from happening, and it almost seems as though Ryan wants to suggest that he's in danger, either as a means of selling the fight or as a cry for help. Wouldn't be the first time we've ever seen that. If it's a cry for help, it's not yet sufficient to get him out of the fight. He's still headed toward the ring. He's still headed toward you, Devin Haney. He doesn't have the profile of a dangerous fighter.
Oh, I see. BAP thinks Ryan's gonna win the fight. That's what it is. BAP must like Ryan Garcia. That's okay. It's okay if you think he's gonna win the fight, but basically everybody is concerned at this point. If he wins, he wins.
Probably the worst thing that's going to happen to Ryan Garcia is that he loses a fight to a more technically adept boxer.
He came in at the official weigh-in. We're at the ceremonial weigh-in. He came in at 143.2 pounds, which, if I do the math correctly, he's on the hook for $1.6 million to Devin Haney now. What do you make of him missing weight and not being able to win a world title if he does pull off this upset?
So somewhere in the back of his mind, he's thinking, $1.6 million, what's that? I get paid a tremendous amount of money to go into the ring and fight, and because of my social media presence and all the ways that I can...
That kind of apathy towards the world title is not a good sign for a 25, 26-year-old fighter. I mean, everyone likes to say belts don't make stars, and that's true because otherwise there'd be, 50 or 60 different stars in boxing. But this belief that they're just totally meaningless, you can't name me a great fighter who didn't carry championship hardware. So, the fact that Ryan's never been a world champion and that he's apathetic towards winning the world title and making weight to compete and fight for the world title is just another thing that I don't think bodes well for him heading into the fight.
I've got other ways of making money too.
Like Raymond Ford the other week on ESPN when he fought Klomatov. He walked through hell. He changed his style. He is by nature a boxer with speed on the outside, but he wanted to win his first world title so bad, he stepped and walked down the puncher in Klomatov, and it wasn't because of he wanted to be famous or he did it because he wanted that world championship. So
safe and secure in the dollar arena, or else he wouldn't have said the things that he said at the news conference yesterday. He had to realize that he was talking on the record, he was in front of the opponent, he was in front of officials, state commission people, etc., when he's spouting out stuff about $500,000 a pound. I totally understand why his father seemed to want to stuff a sock into his mouth. But, at the end of
CW said, Sean, that's kind of your media guys' fault, calling guys superstars without ever doing anything. All these years calling Ryan a star based off what? Well, he is a star at the box office. You know, he has more followers than just about any fighter. He could sell tickets. He sold well in California and Texas, and then had the highest selling pay-per-view fight with Tank since, man, maybe Mayweather McGregor happened in the boxing ring. That fight outperformed Canelo Golovkin 1 and 2. It outperformed everything since Mayweather McGregor. So he is a star, but I don't know anybody who's called him a great fighter. I used to call him a great talent, which I think was fair with his speed, height, and power. But yeah, to answer your question, CW.
That's not life-threatening. That's just crazy behavior, and it's not the first crazy behavior that we've seen from him. And the web, the social media universe, showers him with attention for all of these oddball behaviors that he uses to get attention.
Is he crazy like a fox, or are we seeing a young man?
We're about to find out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's one result of whatever happens tomorrow night, is that we find out whether he's crazy or he's crazy like a fox.
How much of what's happening is generational? Do you think it's possible we would have seen this from Oscar De La Hoya if he were who he was in 2024 as opposed to the 1990s? Or is it, just Ryan?
Well, whether it was Oscar or whether it was somebody else, whether it was Arturo Gatti or any of the other people I've covered who were capable of extreme behaviors, social media magnifies everything in a way that standard human...
my bad. It's a good point by Jim, because I know for a fact Tyson, Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, just to name a few great fighters, messed with cocaine and did drugs in the 1980s, even during the peak. I don't know about Tyson doing it in the peak of their powers, but I have read from many boxing writers Duran and Leonard did, just for example. And there's more where that came from. So to Jim's point, yeah, it's, some of this shit would have been happening with some of the greats of back in the day, but I don't think they'd be quite this erratic, even when they were partying in the 80s.
Social media magnifies everything in a way that standard human behavior...
I guess another thing I'm getting at with Ryan is sometimes the great wrestlers like Macho Man Randy Savage, they would work themselves into a shoot, it was called. They would eventually become the character. And I wonder if part of that has happened with Ryan. At first, he was in control of this beast, of this social media presence, but now it's taken a life of its own and taken the wheel from him a little bit.
Magnified. Never before did you put a device in your living room and show everybody else in the world the inner workings of your life and the things that go on in your mind when normally you're in a private arena. So all of that has conspired to create a pathway for people like Ryan Garcia, and in this case Ryan Garcia in particular, to promote and create the question, is he crazy or is he crazy like a fox?
And lastly,
so shout out to Jim. Let me get out of this for a moment here. Shout out to Jim for that. Thanks always to the HBO Legends Time. I thought that was insightful by Jim, as usual, but man, there's only so much more to say about the fight, and I'd be lying. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see what happens. I got that primordial thing all of us happen. Is something crazy and unexpected about to happen? I shouldn't want to watch, but I have to watch. He could still shock the world because he has real one-punch knockout power, and he was blessed with gifts. You could even argue Ryan was blessed with better gifts than Devin. Wasn't blessed with Devin's overall agility and lateral athleticism. He doesn't have Devin's shiftiness and agility, but he has more raw speed, more raw power. He's taller. So you could even argue Ryan's the more naturally gifted fighter than Devin. But Devin's whole point this whole week has been basically you're going to see what happens when talent works hard versus talent that doesn't work hard. And a little bit of, hard work beats talent when talent's not working hard, even though Devin's a naturally gifted fighter too himself. And, Devin wants to make an example out of Ryan that what happens when you don't adhere to certain principles like discipline. And we'll see if he makes good on that or if he has to settle for an underwhelming performance and has to go 12. And Ryan being a 10-1 underdog, showing every bad negative sign he could try to show out, either on purpose or because it's really what is going on in his life at the moment. And basically a decision for Devin, especially a competitive one, might not do him too many favors because Tank knocked him out in 7. And, you know, you got an uphill climb trying to even get close to the numbers Tank did with him. So, or even worse than that, you get caught early because Devin said, meet me in the center of the ring. Devin might be, that right hand I keep talking about, he might be trying to let it go a little too early in the fight, trying to duplicate what Tank did to Ryan in the 2nd round, letting Ryan come in with fury and combinations and then placing one hard counter with the backhand, Devin's being the right, Tank's being the left, and sitting him down with it. That might be a miscalculation because he doesn't have the power Tank has. Yes, his power is better than it was at 135, being able to rehydrate better and be healthier at 140. But if he lets it go too early, the left hook could get in. So maybe early on, I think he's a little bit better served working his jab with his levels and leaving that right hand more at home to catch Ryan's early left hooks than it is letting it go. But Devin, if you believe what he's saying, and he doesn't say things like this all the time before his fights, he's usually, like Clarissa Shields told me today, just think about getting the victory. Like Floyd Mayweather used to believe, just get the victory. When Floyd would say things, he could either go on his face or on his ass. He could wave the white flag. And then he'd go on to not stop them either. So, you know, Floyd would do that to sell fights too. But for the most part, he would just talk about getting the victory and not promising a knockout. And yeah, if Devin could be giving Ryan his best chance at winning the fight. If he really means that, meet me in the center of the ring, and he's fell in love with his, you know, increased power at 140 too much. But yeah, I got Haney, and all the talking is just about done. Carlos Martinez says IQ is boxing. Haney will outbox him. Daddy Life said Devin looked like a skeleton, though. He did. Well, not like, yeah, he... I don't know if he knew that this weight cut would start to be this tough this early in his tenure at 140. But then again, 140 is not one of the original 8 weight classes. It's a transition weight class. You're not going to stay there very long. Floyd Mayweather had 3 fights at 140, 2004, 2005. Chop Corley, Henry Bruselas, Gotti, and he's on to 47. De La Hoya, I'd have to look it up, but basically De La Hoya fought Julio Cesar Chavez, maybe 1 or 2 other fights, and he was gone to 47. And that's the natural progression of these star super featherweight lightweights that come in with decorated amateur backgrounds. They squeeze down to a really low weight in their early to mid-20s when their young body can afford it. But all along, not as much Floyd because he was smaller, but Sugar Shane, Oscar, and now Devin Haney, these are guys that are really destined to be full-fledged welterweights. Crawford a little bit too. Crawford not as physically big at lightweight as Oscar and Shane were, but you saw inevitably he really settled in for many years at 147 after spending many years at 35. 140 was a little bit of a pit stop. I think Crawford was at 140 for what, 2016, 2017, quickly grabbed all 4 belts and he's out. It's a transition weight class. And so it's transitionally, temporarily, only granted Devin Haney relief temporarily. His real relief and comfort is going to come at 147. The problem is, and now I can get to Antonio McMillan about this boot stuff. The problem is that Devin wants to stick around 140, and 140 is what's best for him because, you know, unless you want to fight Terrence Crawford or Boots Ennis, you know, 147 has a bunch of good but not great fighters. Mario Barrios, Amantas Stanionis, and the big dogs like Crawford and Boots have their eyes on 54. So Devin is best served staying at 140, but this weight cut already looks tough on him on only his 2nd fight at the weight class. And Eddie Hearn already said he's going to fight Sandor Martin to defend his WBC. He's got to get a unification in before he moves up. He doesn't actually have to be undisputed. Ideally, unification against Tio, who's lineal, years of build-up. Devin would be favored in that fight because Tio doesn't pick his hands up when he has to cut distance against guys that move on the outside. He's much better against aggressive fighters like Taylor and Lomachenko. Not as hot against Jermaine Ortiz, Sandor Martin, guys who can move on the outside, keep it rangy. But Antonio McMillan, he tried to pull my card in the comments. He goes, "Why are you okay with Devin not taking a Jaron Ennis fight, but you're more demanding of Gervonta Davis taking a Devin Haney fight. Well, Devin Haney has still yet to compete in the same weight class as Jaron Ennis at any given time in their careers. Devin Haney and Gervonta Davis campaigned at the same weight for nearly half a decade, and Devin Haney became undisputed in the same weight class Gervonta was competing in, and he beat the guy Lomachenko that ever since Tank knocked out Pedraza, everybody wanted Tank to fight. So you let this kid who's half a decade younger than you come into the division, come to lightweight, because people want to see Loma and Tank all the way back at 30. So Devin winds up fighting Lomachenko. You never fight Lomachenko. He beats Lomachenko controversially. I was there at the MGM and I scored it live 115-113 Loma or 114-114 a draw, depending how that first round went, which live I thought was a swing round because Devin controlled most of the first round and then got his head popped up with two left hands at the end. Those were the most eye-catching shots, swing round. So the difference is a couple of differences. Devin and Boots have never even competed in the same weight class. They still have yet to do it. Devin and Tank have been competing in or around the same weight class for over half a decade. There's a real natural buildup. They sparred. Their sparring clip has gone viral with millions of views. They've gone viral talking about each other for years. There's been no buildup to Devin Haney, Jaron Ennis. They've never been in the same weight. And Jaron Ennis is not the accomplished headlining B-side to Devin Haney that Devin Haney is to Tank. Devin Haney has headlined as a pay-per-view fighter. He's headlining as a pay-per-view fighter for the third time. If you don't really want to count the Regis fight because it reportedly didn't do really strong numbers, that's fine. Lomachenko did do good numbers. They sold out the MGM and sold around 150,000 pay-per-views, I believe, or at least around a little over 100,000, which is decent in today's market, I guess, and this fight is going to at least do a couple 100,000. Even if it underperforms and only does 300,000, he's headlining another pay-per-view. He's been undisputed champion. He's got the glamour. He's not like Tank, who's won a Tank is a two-time full champion because he got elevated to full WBA champion once Devin, the real champion, moved up. So Tank has been a WBA lightweight champion and an IBF super featherweight champion. Devin's won 5 titles in 2 divisions. That fight is just more ready to be made. To your point, Antonio McMillan, Max Crosby, when I interviewed him at the beginning of the week in the press conference, he said Devin versus Gervonta is the fight to make and that Gervonta was his favorite fighter. Max Crosby, NFL star for the Raiders, he's not some hardcore boxing fan that knows who the number 4 guy is at super flyweight or at 108, at junior flyweight. He's what you'd call a casual fan, and you got him saying that it's the fight to make. Devin and Ennis isn't there yet. But to prove to Antonio and to other people that I'm not playing the intellectual dishonesty game, I don't think Devin beats Jaron Ennis at 147. And I don't think Bill really thinks that. I don't think that's a fight Bill's interested in because he never mentions it as a realistic possibility. Other people in the media ask them about fighting Jaron Ennis and they show zero interest. They show interest in potentially facing Barrios, a very winnable fight that Devin would win, for the WBC vacant belt that Terrence would be giving up. So it's not me trying to depict something like, oh, Devin's just perfect and Tank has to fight him, but he doesn't have to fight Jaron. He beat Jaron anyways. No, I'd favor Jaron to beat Devin at 147. And I likened it to like Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather got to the top pound for pound spot and held it down for a decade basically. I think Devin can get to the pound-for-pound spot at some point. I don't know how long he'll hold it down. It's very hard to do what Roy Jones and Floyd did, but I do think he'll get there. One way Floyd navigated that was certain fights against naturally bigger men just didn't happen. Paul Williams didn't happen. He went back and forth back in the day on Boxing Talk with Winky Wright at 154 in 2005, 2006. That didn't happen. So that's his fight to sidestep. Now, I'm not going to say it and then act like Devin would beat him. I would favor Ennis. But to be fair about it all, Haney and Ennis doesn't have the build-up, the history, the public demand. Again, they never even fought in the same weight class. It doesn't have that kind of build-up and it hasn't built to the surface to where it's just about time for people to see it, like Devin and Tank. That's the difference to me. And mark my words, after Devin wins this fight Saturday night, Devin and Tank will become the new Crawford Spence. All the way down to it being difficult to make, and how the fuck does it happen on the business side of things? Does Devin, like Crawford, despite having more hardware than the bigger draw in Spence or Tank, does he have to acquiesce to PBC to really make a fight happen? And, you know, does he have to acquiesce? You heard Tank today talking about the 25 pounds that guys are rehydrating to. He doesn't like it. You know, what weight does it happen at and everything? But I believe Devin wins this fight for sure, and that all the talk Sunday and Monday, a lot of the talk will be about Ryan Garcia. Actually, all the talk will be about Ryan Garcia if something crazy happens in the fight. But if nothing truly crazy does happen in the fight and Devin handles his business, get ready, because Devin and Tank is going to be the new Crawford Spence. So, except I think Devin and Tank is a true 50-50 fight. And if you knew your boxing, Crawford and Spence was never a 50-50 fight. It was back in 2018, 2017, 2019, a very competitive fight. But I think people who really knew their boxing always favored Crawford. There's people who really know their boxing that had to favor Spence too. I don't want to, you know, demean you guys, but from my perspective, I always knew Crawford was going to win this fight. When it comes to Devin, Tank, and Shakur, I genuinely don't know who's going to win the fight, which is all the more reason why they have to happen at some point. So, wow, we actually got like 300 people in here. That's awesome. I got 5 guys for the 3rd day in a row. That's not very healthy. Arms looking kind of jacked, but the abs are going to hell. And oh, Molly Mall, I missed the super chat from you earlier, Molly Mall. I apologize. Molly Mall said, what percentage says Ryan retires if he loses badly? I think it's low. I don't think he's going to retire. Win, lose, DQ, draw. I don't think he retires. I don't think it'll be the last time he goes in the boxing ring. He's so young, and you know, even just his natural gifts can have him beat all the Oscar Duartes in the world, you know. So I don't think so. I don't think retirement is in the cards. A long layoff, though, very well might be. But I don't think retirement's in the cards. Even if it was, you know, coming back from an exhibition, which would still count as retirement because you're talking about professionally sanctioned matches. I don't think so. I don't think we're seeing the last of Ryan no matter what. And then Molly Mall with another super chat said, does Xander get a big fight at 154? Maybe Conwell. Ooh. Well, I think that Molly Mall, the only way they'd interest a Conwell fight, who's with Golden Boy now, is if Conwell got his hands on the WBC title. And Conwell, I like Charles Conwell. He's a good pressure fighter, super good on the inside. Doesn't have a whole lot of tricks up his sleeve. He's just very fundamentally sound and has some quick hands. Not a huge puncher, an accumulation guy who's got to put his punches together. And Xander Zayas, I could see him beating Charles Conwell 2 or 3 years from now in a great fight because Charles is a tough customer who's, you know, overdue for getting a shot at a bigger fight. Yeah, I think Xander Zayas projects to beat Conwell because he's bigger man than Conwell. Conwell's not a big guy at 154. He is a true 154. He's not some blown up welterweight, but he's short for the division and not a huge puncher. I think Xander, through the shoulders, through his body, is just a naturally bigger man. And I think he has heavier hands than Charles Conwell. Right now, Xander's too green for Charles Conwell probably, but, you know, let him get that traditional WBO belt at some point. That Top Rank always seems to find for their guys in winnable fights for their first title fight. Let him get through that process, and then I think he could beat a Charles Conwell. And I say that as someone who really respects Conwell. And I don't know if Xander Zayas is the next Felix Trinidad, but I think he's pretty good. And I think he's going to hold it down for Puerto Rico. He's going to be, you know, the replacement for Miguel Cotto that they've looked at. I don't even know if he's as good as Cotto. He's good. I like him. I think he's Puerto Rico's first legit guy, not in the very low weight classes anyways, that they have since Cotto. But it's going to be tough to live up to Cotto, let alone Trinidad. But to answer your question, not right now. But a little bit down the road, I think Zayas could beat Charles Conwell. So, let's see. Who wins, Ryan or Rolly? That'd have been a good fight. I'd have favored Ryan. Let's see here. Boots versus Devin is random as hell. It is, but there was a fella, Antonio McMillan, who really wanted me to address that. Antonio is a pretty loyal listener, and you know, I didn't want him to think that just because I'm very high on Devin, I've covered him since he's a teenager. I think he will get to the top pound for pound spot. I think he'll go to the Hall of Fame. I think he'll become champ from 135 to 154. But all that said, if you were to fight Jaron Ennis at 47, I'd favor Jaron Ennis. And I think that's a big reason why they'd be wise to never take that fight. You know, unless it just builds into something big, which isn't the case with a Boots Ennis fight right now. Speaking of Boots, he was at the weigh-in today. Sounds all but close to official that he's going to fight Cody Crowley in June or July in Philly with his first fight with Eddie Hearn. That on paper, shout out to Cody Crowley, man. Tough guy who trains his ass off. But that on paper figures to be one of the most brutal one-sided title fights in a long time. Cody Crowley beats guys with his conditioning and his heart. And even against fighters like Abel Ramos, who's many levels below Boots Ennis. Abel Ramos is a very competent, solid professional with some heavy hands, but he's many levels below Boots. And Cody's face was busted up like crazy after fighting Abel Ramos. You may see some Mayweather-Gotti type stuff. That fight was in Atlantic City. Philly's right near Atlantic City. You know, almost 20 years later, after Mayweather-Gotti, Cody Crowley, Boots Ennis may look Mayweather-Gotti-esque. But then again, Boots is the kind of puncher Floyd wasn't, and there might not be 6 rounds of punishment to give out. That fight could end early. So before we get out of here, let me take a look at what Roy Jones had to say about everything going down.
No, I was not surprised he came in 3 pounds overweight. Why? Because he's been doing a lot of different things to try to make this fight different and make people become excited about it. You feel me? So for him, he's not the champion right now. He's coming off of a loss with Tate. He got to try to do something to keep.
I feel like such a casual right now. I feel like I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. Juan Rosa put me in my place saying people like Matias are the face of Puerto Rican boxing more than Zayas, but I disagree. No, you're right. You're right. As of today, April 19th, 2024, Xander Zayas is still a prospect, truly transitioning to contender status. And Subriel Matias is probably, I would imagine, because of his style, the most beloved reigning champion in Puerto Rico right now. So I stand corrected. Right now, it is Matias' time. As good as Matias is, and he's not really working on new things, he's mastering what he's always been good at. Mid to close range combination punching and overwhelming you with that. And catching and shooting off of that too. He's getting better at the things he's already been good at. Not really developing anything new though. But as good as Matias is, I'd favor Cruz to beat him because I think that fight with 2 punchers would come down to who takes a better shot. And I think Cruz takes a better shot than Matias, no doubt about it. So I'd favor Cruz. And then Teofimo, maybe Matias would mentally and physically break him with the work rate and the combinations and the power. And we know Teo is up and down, all kind of like Ryan a little bit, kind of all over the place. But Teo is at his best when you come to him and you allow him to be counterpuncher. And Matias' style figures to let Teo have plenty of countering opportunities. So Teo is a little shaky, we know that, but I would still favor Teofimo because he's a brilliant counterpuncher when he's at his best and he's got power. So I'd still favor Teo over Matias. And then with Devin Haney, Devin would just outbox him, put the jab on him, not stay in the range that Matias likes to really operate at. And I think, Devin would beat him by decision. So shout out to Matias, though. He is the man right now from Puerto Rico. But Zayas, he has a marketability and a potential star power that could definitely eclipse and surpass Matias for sure. He's got the sweetheart of Puerto Rico vibe to him.
He's excited. So by coming in, do everything against the grain,
at least
gives him a better chance because he feels like you're
at least this Roy Jones video isn't washed out. Let's go.
He feel like he wants to be the bad guy and let Haney be the good guy. And by doing things like this, it further exaggerates him being the bad guy.
Do you think he also uses it as an advantage? I mean, he purposely say, okay, I'm gonna have this advantage.
He's gonna try to have an advantage, but make no mistake about it. Haney ain't small as you think Haney is.
You surprised he came and drank the beer on the scale?
No, I'm not surprised. Look what he's been doing lately. I should be surprised. Nothing he does surprise me.
So as a coach and as a trainer, at what point do you pull your fighter to the side and say, "Hey man, what's going on?"
Shout out to my guy right here asking that question, Marcus Hayes.
So
Marcus Hayes from Fight Hub is a good dude. I want to shout out to all my videographers: Kevin Garcia, Hans Themistode from Fight Hype, Stephen Cuneo from KO Artist, his own brand, Matt Tucker from Fight Hub, and Champ Side holding it down. My man Skip from Aki TV and Dante's Boxing Nation. Shout out to all my colleagues. But right here, Marcus is really doing a good job. He knows that Roy is basically letting water come off his back. Who cares about this kid and his antics? None of it surprises me. I'm training Kevin Newman on the undercard. And Marcus all week, and I've tried to join along with him, has really been trying to get people to be a little bit more serious and sober about what's going on with Ryan during this fight week.
But as a coach and as a trainer, at what point do you pull your fighter to the side and say, "Hey man, what's going on? Talk to me."
Well, as a coach, as a trainer, my fighter, if he did that, I would leave the stage. Everybody ain't me. But I boxed. I understood. I represented the
I didn't even hear what Roy said when he said that. Roy said what, chat? He said, if it was my trainer, I would leave the States? Is that what he said?
Well, as a coach, as a trainer, my fighter, if he did that, I would leave the stage.
I would leave the stage. So shout out to Marcus. You know, Roy, here's the thing, man. And I interviewed Clarissa. We'll look at that Clarissa interview before I go. Fighters don't like to demean other fighters, especially to media guys like us that don't box professionally. They're not in a hurry to say condemning things about other fighters because they know what it's like to be on that side when the media is running with negative narratives about you, true or not. And when they're true, hey, fair enough. Don't bitch about the media. We're doing our job. Sometimes we run with ones, you know, I try not to, but it happens, generalizing the media, which is annoying as a media guy, but here I am doing it. You know, when they do that. But you heard Roy, once he was really pressed on it by Marcus, no, but what do you really think, Roy? Like you're saying, of course I'm not surprised, and it's cool, of course he got a beer and whatever, and he's trying to play the heel. And you heard Roy, oh, if it was me, if it was really me, I would leave the stage.
But as a coach and as a trainer,
which is
at
telling.
what point do you pull your fighter to the side and say, "Hey man, what's going on? Talk to me."
Well, as a coach, as a trainer, my fighter, if he did that, I would leave the stage. Everybody ain't me. But I boxed. I understood. I represented the fans. You understand me? And my kids, I don't want my kids looking up to that. So when I was a boxer, I respected myself enough to do things that your kids could look up to me and say, I want to be like him one day, and you not be ashamed.
And this is what Devin is saying. All just like Roy Jones. This is what Devin's been saying all week, and Devin looks up to Roy Jones. You could look at my first interview with Devin from 2014 where he said he looked up to Roy Jones. Everything Roy is saying here about how he goes about the sport is how Devin is going about it. And Devin learned that from Roy and from guys like Floyd. Growing up in Las Vegas, being taken under their wing.
Not what you really want in boxing. That kind of stuff is what hurts the sport. And
to get deep about it for a minute, it's a lineage that got fighters like Devin Haney are holding up. The lineage of great American fighters, oftentimes black American fighters. There's a lineage, just like in great Mexican boxing, there's a lineage to be held, to be passed down, so for the youth to learn from and then incorporate into themselves as young fighters, or if they're not fighters, young men, whatever. And, you know, Devin carries the lineage, the tools of the trade from Floyd and guys like Roy, and he's probably going to prevail because he adheres more strictly to those values that great fighters pass down to him. Those same great fighters, literally Roy and Floyd, have reached out to Ryan as well, but he's an excitable kid who's living the fast life, has all this kind of fame that 99.9% of fighters don't have, and it's distracted him from what it's going to have to take to win these kind of big fights.
It's bad that he's going through so much mentally that he's doing things like that, but that's not good to me.
Should he be fighting Saturday, Roy?
What?
Should he be fighting in this fight Saturday, Roy?
I mean, he already signed up for it now. People spent their money to see it, so yeah, he got to fight now. But after this, he should really be evaluated.
How do you think that?
You heard Roy.
Huh?
You heard after this, he should really be evaluated. So once we really pressed Roy about what he really thinks and not just doing the fighter talk, not just saying, hey, it's a fight and it is what it is, because fighters are in no hurry unless they're in each other's weight class and there's a PR game going on about he's ducking me or I want to fight him or whatever. They're usually not quick to want to condemn other fighters. But once we really got Roy's real thoughts, he said he would leave the stage and that he should be evaluated after the fight. So shout out to Marcus and myself for pressing him on that. Anyway. let's take one more look at So to speak to the point I just said, fighters are in no rush to put each other down, and that can be difficult to get what their real thoughts are. So Claressa Shields here, the quote, you know, it was hard to really get what she really thinks. I highly doubt she was sharing with me what she really thinks, and I couldn't put my finger on it. Was she not telling me because she didn't want to make excuses for Ryan to begin to detract from what she thinks Devin's about to do? Or does she like Ryan and it's a fellow fighter respect thing, and she's not trying to tell these media guys, oh, I don't think he's well in the head, I don't think he's prepared, blah, blah, blah. Let's take a look. Once this Sleep Number ad, by the way, free advertising on my live for Sleep Number, or Tempur-Pedic, whatever. I thought it was the one Dak Prescott sleeps on. Here we go.
I'm not a person that
She don't want to say what she really thinks.
That's all I know. I don't know what else to think about it. Yeah, I was surprised, but especially with all the answers and everything, but they're still gonna fight, so.
Is people, like concerned for Ryan? Like, should he even be heading into a title fight right now?
He's been evaluated by doctors and everything, so I'm not able to speak on that. But hopefully he is well, and this fight is a really good fight that everybody comes to see.
Who do you see winning the fight, Claressa?
See, that's not Claressa Shields. Claressa Shields is an expressive, exuberant person that, you know, speaks from the heart. And here she was just very guarded. And I just was curious why that was exactly. Was she trying to be nice to Ryan because she knows him personally? Was she trying not to have take away from what she thinks Devin's inevitably about to do? And, you know, so.
Who do you see winning the fight?
See Devin win. I always go on who's more skilled, who's more dedicated, who's more professional, who's more hungry. And I feel like this fight will catapult Devin to where he want to be at.
Are you like kind of hesitant to comment on the Ryan stuff because you don't want to take away from what Devin's about to do? Is that part of it, or are you like hesitant to comment on Ryan's weight and all that because you don't want to take away from potentially what Devin's about to do?
No, I mean, I don't want to speak on his mental health because I don't know about his mental health. All I know is that he's been evaluated by doctors, and I'm not a doctor, and the doctors passed him. So if they pass him, they must know that he's well.
Maybe Claressa just feels like I feel, except I gotta do it because she kicks ass for a living and I'm trying to talk for a living. It's uncomfortable to talk about another grown man's mental state. It feels a little out of pocket. But I wouldn't be saying it unless I really felt that way after observing and observing and observing and at different times, you know, so here we go.
Something we don't know. That's why I'm not speaking too much on it, but I mean, and being a fighter, everybody wants to win. But Devin is still the better fighter no matter what happens today.
Right.
Do you think this fight is going to just...
No, I don't.
All right, so she's got Devin by stoppage. I'm going to get out of here in a minute, guys. I'm ready to eat this Five Guys. It's been a fun week. Tomorrow is finally fight night. Can't do a live at the fight. They don't play that at the fight. But I will be live in the arena right after the fight to react. Then I'll run to the post-fight to get some interviews, get the press conference. And as soon as the press conference is over, I'm going to try and find a nice little spot at the Barclays and go live right after the fight to talk with all you wonderful people. So, I do got a super chat from JK Production saying, thank you for the super chat, JK, saying, could you have a rewatching or a scoring so-called robberies night? That'd be good content. I'd love to do that. And that was content I already had. Yes, to answer your question, that's coming. We will review. I did Throwback Thursday. Didn't do it this week. I'm busy working the fight in Brooklyn. Last week, we did our first inaugural Throwback Thursdays. We did De La Hoya Gotti, Mayweather Gotti. We definitely are going to get into some rescoring controversial fights. That sounds like a lot of fun to do with the diehards that jump into the channel. You know, we could watch Leonard Hagler. That fight's not that controversial to me. Leonard won that fight. De La Hoya Trinidad, I thought De La Hoya won. But some people may disagree. De La Hoya Mosley 2 is a good one. Mayweather versus Castillo 1. I believe I've scored that fight a draw when I go back to it. There was 2 different rounds where each fighter got a point deduction. And that was pretty crucial to how you scored the fight. I think I scored it 113-113 with the 2-point deductions each. I'd love to watch that fight with you guys. Winky Wright, Jermaine Taylor is another one that comes to mind. Pernell Whitaker, Julio Cesar Chavez. Although I think we're all just going to agree that Sweet Pea got robbed. But definitely, thank you, JK Productions. I definitely want to do that. And you guys suggest fights, and we'll revisit controversial fights live. Will you be in Saudi for Bivol Beterbiev? What's up, Charles? And thank you for always being in the super chat. I won't. I have yet to get my passport, man. I wonder if Jay-Z will be at the Barclays. I do know Jay-Z's cool with Devin. Back when I was just all about getting as much access and content as possible, I was in Devin's locker room after he beat Gamboa in Florida during the pandemic. This was 4 years ago now. And Jay-Z FaceTimed Devin in the locker room. I remember that. So maybe Jay-Z will be there. But I doubt it. What about Winky Wright versus Fernando? That's a good one. I was always told Fernando got a gift in that fight. And when I watched it, very, very close fight. Very close fight. I would love to do Winky Wright and Fernando. Let me see who else I could shout out, though. CW. What's up, CW? Ryan Speech, Jose, of course, Charles N., Adam Hurley, Juan Rosa, OQK, Drummers Against It. He's always in the chat. Thank you, brother. Pocket, Jay Banga, Dan P, Jose, Chris Venegas. What's going on, brother? What's up? And Jai C, Adam Hurley, Antonio McMillan. Oh, my man Chris Venegas said, "Sup, Sean? Thoughts on Terrence Crawford moving up to 154 to fight Israel Madrimov in August?" What's up, Chris? Is that official? Good fight. Not a sexy fight. Crawford apparently is getting paid what he wants by the Saudis. But it's a good fight. I think the better fight would have been fighting the winner of Zhu Fundora. Really, if it was Tim Zhu. Now that it's Fundora, I don't know. Fundora isn't the attraction that Zhu is by bringing in that overseas audience. Good fight. Good fight. I'd be much more interested in Turki Al-Sheikh overpaying Crawford to fight Jaron Ennis. That'd be a lot better. But while at 54 and while PBC doesn't seem interested, or he doesn't seem, they can't come to terms. Maybe they want more of a commitment than one fight on a fight-to-fight basis. Terrence is his own boss. He likes to wield power independently and not acquiesce. He did for Aram for years, but then he wound up turning around and suing him. Who knows if Daniel Kinahan is still somehow involved in all this? They haven't expedited him anywhere, right, in Saudi, and Terrence had a relationship with Kinahan. He signed with MTK before they had to disband. How much does he loom in all this? But basically, to answer my man Chris Venegas, the big dog, his question, it's a good fight. It's definitely a good fight. It's a legit fight. But Madrimov only has, 10, 11, 12 fights? He's very talented. He's got that flashy footwork. He's a natural 154-pounder. He looked great in his last fight. So it's a really good fight. It's a really good fight. I would have preferred the Ennis fight. It's too bad that Zhu got that cut and then got knocked off by Fundora, because I think Zhu and Crawford on Amazon Prime is a bigger fight. Bud and Boots is a bigger fight. But Madrimov is a very good, legitimate challenge for Crawford at 36, moving up, for fighting a world title holder in his first fight at 54. Salute. It's a good fight. It's a good fight. But that's about it, everybody. Everyone have a... Turkey just dropped a pick with Ennis, so we might get that Boots fight in Saudi. It's funny. I haven't jumped on the bandwagon for loving Turki Al-Sheikh and the fights in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Admittedly, part of it's a political thing. I'm a hypocritical American. I'm only okay with fucked up shit when my country does it. But I stand on it. Hypocritical American. But, man, if Turki Al-Sheikh delivers Bud versus Boots, I'm gonna put some respect on his name. I won't call him His Excellency. And I don't believe in that as an American. But I will put some respect on his name, and I will be grateful for him putting together and overpaying, because that's the only way that fight happens. Is Boots has won one title. It was given to him by Vacant. He's a 12 out of 10 on the eye test charts, meaning if you know boxing, you know how tough of a fight he's gonna be. But he's like a 4 or a 5 out of 10 in terms of accomplishments to match up to the eye test. So the only way that fight really happens is if someone with really deep pockets like Turki Al-Sheikh offers Bud a whole shitload of money to fight a fight he's not otherwise really interested in. And if Turki Al-Sheikh winds up doing that, I'll do a respectful bow on the live. I still won't call another man his excellency, but I will bow and be grateful. Sean, how come Tank dislikes you? I've had some good moments with Tank. I don't know. He did that's a whole thing with I don't even want to get into it because I don't want to. But when we've dealt personally without cameras on, we've had some good interactions actually. If he really didn't like me that much, he wouldn't have allowed me to watch him spar Frank Martin and De Leon from Puerto Rico, or excuse me, was it Torres? It was an 18-0 Puerto Rican fighter. He busted his face up with a left uppercut. I interviewed him right after it happened during the pandemic. But, you know, he's allowed me to watch him train and spar up close. And then I remember we had a good heart-to-heart after he knocked out Pedraza. He came to the Leo Santa Cruz Carl Frampton rematch a couple weeks later at MGM. And I remember he had his big black mink on, and I was able to pull him to the side. I don't know what gave me the confidence to do that. It was because he's so young. And I pulled him to the side and I said, hey, man, you know, going into that fight with Pedraza, I knew you were going to win. A lot of people pick Pedraza because they put too much of an overemphasis on things like IQ, experience. Too much emphasis on experience and who has Tank fought. And I said, but the eye test, the natural talent you showed, I knew you were going to win that fight. And that's what wins fights, not resumes. And experience is important, but experience can't overcome a superior, more talented fighter. And I remember he appreciated that. And then I even brought it up when I saw him sparring, getting ready for the Santa Cruz. I said, you remember what I said, you know, after you beat Pedraza? And he said, yeah, I remember. And, you know, we dapped up and all that, you know. I just want to cover him fairly. I'm not trying to be his friend or anything, you know, just trying to cover him fairly. Just because I put some pressure on him to move up to 40 and fight Devin, I do it because Tank has done everything else. He's become the box office star. He's beaten good fighters, not great fighters, but good fighters. And he's beaten them impressively many times. So all that's left to do to solidify everything else you've done to this point at the box office and winning a couple belts in 2 or 3 weight classes is beat the guy that everybody wants to know if you could beat, whether it be Shakur or Devin Haney. Beat one of them, and then there's nothing no one can say. But until he beats a Devin or a Shakur, there's something missing from him being great. And not just a great star and a great talent who's beaten some good fighters, but he's not a great fighter until he knocks off Devin or Shakur at some point. So anyways, guys, that's about it. Everyone, what's this from Marcos? Sean, how come you're rocking that Justin Bieber cut? Are you on your own now? So you gassed him up and he gave you a pass? I don't know. I wear I had this before Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber rocks the Sean Zittel. This was originally the Ashton Kutcher, okay? And I forget Drake Bell and Justin Bieber. This is the Ashton Kutcher. So I'll catch you guys later. Prime Ashton Kutcher. We talk about fighters and their prime Ashton Kutcher. My wife, she gives me the hard eyes. I love you too. I love you, Samantha. All you guys, thanks for rocking with me on the live. Probably started to repeat myself as the week went on, but I saw more of the same to validate what I was originally feeling as the fight week began. So God bless everybody. Check in with me tomorrow. Keep it locked in. Got interviews coming, content coming. And I'll be live tomorrow after the fight from my hometown in Brooklyn. Peace. God bless.